Alright, welcome to another stream of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I am Mike November Whiskey, and we are here in Karachi, Pakistan, where we landed last night in very smoky weather. See, the weather is a bit clearer today, a bit more visibility, but we'll see what kind of weather we are flying into today on our way to Mumbai. Once again, we are in the fly-by-wire A320. We switched over from the experimental to the development mod last night because we consistently encountered a few bugs here and there that just made flying the experimental version not quite worth it at the moment, in my opinion. If you really want the LNAV features and the TCAS, if you're flying in busy airspace and you probably use those features more, then experimental might be worth it for you. But for our purposes, I think we'll take the stability of the development version tonight. So we are in this Air India livery. I couldn't find a Pakistan airline livery to use, but this Air India livery is actually super cool, super vintage. Don't know much about this particular livery, if this is actually on modern planes, but something about it just feels a little bit older to me. But it looks really nice. Really excited to fly it. Yeah, so I guess just a quick preamble on what we're doing here. We are flying around the world 2-hour legs at a time. We're doing 2-hour legs because that's the amount of time I really have available to stream in any given session. And honestly, I mean, entertaining folks for hours on end in cruise is challenging to do, so 2 hours feels like a good enough amount of time to do real-world procedures on the ground, do some takeoffs, do some approaches and landings, maybe interact with ATC along the way if they're online, and have an overall good time. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and jump in the cockpit and start getting things ready, and I'll share additional details about the stream along the way. So here we are. It's cold and dark at the moment, so first thing we'll do is hook ourselves up to external power and turn on our batteries here. Get some lights on for now while we get things set up and the sun continues to rise. And just do the initial flows of turning on the cruise supply, ground control, starting getting those aiders aligned. And actually get our lights on, let folks know outside that we're here. Get these lights going. We'll keep the seatbelt signs off because we'll be refueling a bit. And we'll get the APU started to get the packs rolling. Okay, that's good for now. We'll do the rest of the overhead flows in a little bit. Priority right now is just to get fuel on board and passengers loaded because that will take the most amount of time. So we'll give that APU a few minutes to spin up. But in the meantime, we'll head over to our pad over here. Jetway is still connected, that's good. And we'll pull in our sim brief data for a flight to Mumbai tonight. Yep, and there it is. We'll copy down our ATIS information in a sec, but first and foremost, I want to look at our fuel situation. We'll do a full brief of the operating flight plan, but just for expediency's sake, I want to get this refueling underway. So today we're looking at a block fuel of 6.3 tons. Our alternate requires an additional 2 tons. And a quick look at the weather. We'll do a more in-depth weather briefing in a bit, but just to kind of get a sense for where we're flying into. Looks like haze, scattered clouds, pretty low, but no significant weather otherwise. Kind of looking ahead here. Haze, fog, it looks like. Some smoke conditions expected. Okay, so visibility might be an issue. But if we're doing an ILS landing tonight, which we'll just confirm that we are, I'm less worried about the visual conditions. So I don't see a significant reason why to take additional fuel, especially since we have a good chunk for our alternate. So we'll do 63.87 tonight. It'll take about 4 minutes to fuel up, so not too long. And let's see, that APU should be up and running by now. And it is. APU is available, so we'll get APU bleed on, and then we should be free to get our passengers on board. So let's hop in here. Just do weights and balance for now. 134 passengers tonight, and we'll start getting them on board. Okay, so now that's underway. We can do our cockpit preparation flows, which I'm going to try to do from memory for now. But starting with the center console, working our way up. Cockpit doors unlocked for now is fine. Spoilers are retracted and disarmed. Flaps are retracted. Parking brake is set. ATC on standby, TCAS on standby. Weather radar is off. Let's get some more lights on here. We are set to Unicom right now because there is no ATC online, and thrust levers are set to idle, engine masters are off, engine mode is set to normal. Alright, come up here. These displays are good for now, but we'll look up here, and our anti-skid is on. Confirm brake pressures in the green. Clock is correct. Let me just double check that. Yes, it is about 20 past 2 UTC, and that is fine. Coming up here, the brightness settings are fine there. Coming to the glare shield, we'll just set that over to QNH. Get constraints turned on, get some backlighting on here, and we'll set up the rest of our autopilot settings when we do our departure briefing. Over here, I'll turn this flight director off, and I'll turn these screens off just to save us some frames. Oh, hello Vanessa, welcome to the channel. Just going through our cockpit preparation flows at the moment. Alright, so coming up above here, we're going to keep our fuel pumps off for now since we're currently refueling. We'll go ahead and do our fire tests. Should have done that before I turn on the APU, but no. Note for next time. Alright, that all looks good, and no white lights. Alright, everything looks fine there. So let's start briefing our flight for today. Heading to the operational flight plan here. We are in Karachi and we're heading to Mumbai. Looks like a little bit over an hour in the air, so it won't be too long of a flight. Alternate tonight is Victor Oscar Golf Oscar. Our call sign is Air India 9084, cost index 15, cruise flight level 370. Triple pause is lower tonight, so we'll be above the weather for sure, 30,000 feet. And trip wind, a nice healthy tailwind of 50 knots. All looks good. We have our departure information here. I'm going to go ahead and write down our ATIS information so we can just confirm that the runways make sense based on the weather. So looking at our weather right now in Karachi, we're looking at QNH of 1018, wind 0 at 0 knots, very calm, and 11 degrees with a dew point of 6 degrees. So going back to our operational flight plan, pretty much any runway is appropriate in weather conditions like this. So we'll just assume 7 right is correct via the Dengi 1 Delta departure. So we'll make sure to get charts for that. We'll worry about our approach once we're in the air and just confirm that our approach as filed makes sense, since I'm assuming we're not going to have ATC for the duration. Let's see, what else do we want to see here? We looked over our fuel. We'll go back there again when we set up the box. I did want to look at the maximum shear rate, so okay, at top of climb we are expecting a shear rate of 5.2, so there will be some turbulence on the way. Let's take a look. So pretty much anything above a shear rate of 4 is going to be a little uncomfortable. But it looks like it's really going to be bad kind of early in the flight, top of climb, some of these early checkpoints, so we'll probably keep our seatbelt sign on for a good while. Let's see, I'm just looking where these checkpoints are. So top of climb. Alright, so once we pass BVR, maybe we'll see if we're experiencing any bumps. We can turn that seatbelt sign off then. Alright, do another check of our departure weather. So these invisibilities still have smoke conditions. No significant clouds. Looks like haze is in the forecast. Haze and smoke. Okay, so nothing's really changed significantly. Weather, the winds are expected to still be pretty light, but we should be long gone by then. Okay, excellent. So that's that. So let's get our charts organized, and then we'll set up the box. So open up Navigraph here. Alright, open up the Karachi charts. And do the airport information. I forgot to write down what stand we're at, but let's see if memory serves. I think we're probably at stand 14, although it shouldn't matter too much without ATC online. But, okay, so if we're taking off from 7 right, all the way down here, so basically going to push back onto Kilo facing west. Probably take, I guess that's Mike. Let's take a look at this. Kilo and, yeah, I guess Mike to Echo. We'll take Echo all the way down to the end to maximize our runway. Okay, so that's good to know. Our standard instrument departure time, we are looking at Dengi 1 Delta. There we go. Let's see what this is all about. So, Dengi 1 Delta to Kilo Charlie 507, turn right direct to Dengi, climbing to ATC assigned flight altitude. And without ATC, we'll just go ahead and clear ourselves. So, here we go. So this is 7 right, Dengi 1 Delta. Okay, that's pretty easy. So maybe we'll hand fly to Kilo Charlie 507. And then fly direct to Dengi, and we'll want to stay below 7,000 feet along that way. So that will be our initial climb at altitude. We'll set 7,000. So I'll go ahead and set that now while we're talking about it, and I don't have to worry about it later. 7,000 feet. Excellent. Alright, let's just take stock of the 7 right approach. This is the same runway we landed on last night, so I should be somewhat familiar with this chart, but we'll use this missed approach procedure if we encounter any issues on takeoff. And hi Vanessa, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you this evening? Alright, that looks all good to me. So with that, I think let's set our QNH, because we'll forget to do it later. 1018. And I think we are ready to set up the box. So starting with data, let's take a look at our IRSs. They are all aligned to nav, great. And making sure we have the right engines, the LEAP engines are correct, and the latest AIRAC cycle, which we do have. Heading to init 1, let's do our init request. And there we go. We have Karachi to Mumbai. That is our correct alternate. We are Air India 9084. And COS index 15, flight level 370. Tropopause is lower than that according to our OFP, so let's get that in there. 30,300. Hi, Vanessa. Yes, that is correct. Pakistan is a majority a Muslim country, and India is a majority Hindu country. Can't speak for Pakistan, but I know India also has a pretty diverse population of Muslims, Christians, Jews as well, but is over majority Hindu. All right. That looks fine, so let's head to our flight plan. So from Karachi, we know we're departing via the 7 rights and the Dengi 1 Delta. My memory is terrible, I've already forgotten. Dengi 1 Delta, that is correct. And no transitions, and insert. So a little discontinuity there, and an overfly. Oh, interesting. So maybe they merged the overfly capability into the development version, which is fantastic. That is actually the feature I wanted more. So let's look at our plan and just make sure our departure route looks fine. So 7 right to Kilo Charlie 507, and then from there it should be direct to Dangi. And then from there we go along the remainder of our flight plan, and that next waypoint after Dangi is Telem via Gulf 472. So that looks fine, so I'll just go ahead and clear that discontinuity. Gulf 472, and now that looks more correct, and we have our flight level restriction there. So that is cool too. Everything looks good. Moving on to rad navs. I believe I saw, maybe I saw VOR on that chart, on that departure chart. Let's double check. Yeah, so there is a VOR there. And just want to see, yeah, this is basically a GPS departure, so I won't really need the VOR. I may need it for the emergency procedures. Double check there. Now it's also based on waypoints, but just so that we have at least some easy measure of our distance from the airport, should we need it, we'll go ahead and put that VOR in here. Great. And we'll go ahead and turn that on so we can see it on our screen. Okay, so that is set, and now let's take a look at our boarding progress before we go to Init B, so we can get accurate weights and balances. Oh, we are fully boarded, so that worked out pretty well timing-wise. So head to Init B, and we should get accurate zero fuel weights here, 56.4 kilos. 56.4 kilos, that matches. So we'll go ahead and enter that there, and our block fuel fueling is complete. So that'd be block fuel of 6.4. And we have a tailwind to account for. That was tailwind of 52 knots. Tail 5-2. That's good, and let's get the rest of our parameters in there as well. Contingency 0.6, alternate 1.8, and 1 for final reserve. 0.6, 1.8, and 1. 0.6, 1.8, and 1. And with that tailwind, I'm expecting a decent amount of extra fuel there. 10 minutes, 11 minutes, no problem. No problem at all. All right, performance. This is my favorite page. So I have a performance model in Excel that I use, which is really fun for doing flex takeoffs. So the deal with flex takeoffs, it's effectively a takeoff where you're not pushing your engines to full power, and the reason why pilots like to do this is it just extends the useful life of the engines, kind of reduces the overall wear and tear. So instead of using full power, you're just leveraging longer runways or better wind conditions to assist in your takeoff in order to lower the maintenance costs of your plane. So it's something that is pretty common among the airlines based on my understanding, but it's not straightforward to calculate what the flex takeoff settings should be. So I was able to find an Excel model that at least approximates it. I'm not sure how close to real world it is. Usually, each airline has their own calculation, I think, for the flex to temp configurations. But for our purposes, for sim purposes, this Excel model does just fine. So it starts with looking at our runway parameters. So runway 7 right, we are on a heading of 74 degrees. Elevation here in Karachi, we're pretty close to sea level, but the average altitude seems to be, let's call it 80 feet, 83 feet. Length of the runway in meters is 3,400. So plenty long, but not crazy long. Wind is 0 and 0, so we're not going to get any help from the wind today. Outside air temperature today is 11 degrees. QNH is 1018. Runway conditions are dry. Takeoff weight is expected to be around 63 tons. And we're going to do a flex takeoff in configuration 1 for the flaps. We'll turn the packs off for a little extra boost to the engines. and no anti-ice will be needed. And we'll let's take a look at our center of gravity here, so we know our trim setting. We'll find that. Where will we find that? I always forget. Is it fuel prediction? Yes, there we go. Center of gravity 24.8. All right, and then we have our flex settings. So going back to performance, we're going to do a flap 1 takeoff, and our trim is going to be up 0.8 per my calculator. Flex to temp, which is the most important metric here, is going to be 68 degrees. And now our transition altitude. Let's just make sure we know what that is. It should be on the departure chart. Transition altitude 3000, and that's what it is in the box. So that's right, it's getting it from the air cycle, which is awesome. Calculated V1 is 129, but that is far too slow for our flex. My calculator is telling us a V1 speed of 148. You can think of V1 as our abort speed. Anything above that speed, we're committed to takeoff. Our rotation speed, which is when we actually pull back on the stick, is 149, and our V2 speed, which is the takeoff speed for a single engine takeoff, if there's an engine failure on the runway, is 150. Our thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes look fine because it's roughly 1,500 feet above sea level by default, and our engine out acceleration altitude is also 1,500. Airlines have their own versions of this as well. So I'm not going to mess with it for our purposes. Hi Vanessa, just catching up on your text. Wow, that's quite the story. Yeah, my wife's parents are from Ahmedabad originally, but they moved to the United States in the 1960s. So they've been here quite a long time. I've never been to Mumbai myself. I've been to Hyderabad and Bangalore, but I have not made it to Mumbai yet. I hope to one day. All right, so that looks good. All right, so I think we're done with the box. I think we're all set up there. So I think at this point we can start preparing for our pushback. Alright, so just making sure all the configuration's good. We'll lock our door at this point because we are leaving. We're heading out. Alright. Oh yeah, fuel pumps. And a seatbelt sign. Okay. I think I'll just check our ECAM real quick. Did we miss anything? Nope. All looks good there. So let's look at our standing operating procedures doc. Alright, so at this point we should do our emergency briefing. So if there is an issue on the way to the runway, I will call a full stop and we'll bring the airplane to a full stop. We'll contact ATC, although they're offline right now, and notify them of the issue. We'll perform any ECAM procedures and make a call whether to return to the gate or continue on to the runway. If we experience a failure before 100 knots or V1, we'll clearly call out the malfunction and I will call stop or go. If I call stop, I'll apply the rejected takeoff procedure and bring the airplane to a complete stop on the runway. Then we'll set the parking brake, call attention crew at station. I'll monitor rev green and decel and silence any oral warnings and inform air traffic control if they're available. And then we'll carry out our ECAM actions and then decide whether to reattempt takeoff or return to the gate. If there's a failure after V1, takeoff will be continued and no action will be taken before 400 feet AGL, except to silence any oral warnings and get the gear up. Upon reaching 400 feet AGL, we'll perform any ECAM actions for engine failure, damage, or fire. When the engine is secured, we'll stop the ECAM, level off, accelerate, and clean up. If the engine is not secured, we'll continue climbing until the engine is secured, but not above the engine out maximum acceleration altitude, which is 1,500 feet today. At green dot, open climb and select MCT on the throttle. We'll resume ECAM, complete after takeoff checklists, and check the status of the issue. And at that point, we'll decide whether to continue on course or return to the airport or follow the missed approach procedure here to the holding point and make a decision then. Alright, that all sounds good. So at this point, let's do our before start checklist. Cockpit prep is complete. Gear pins and covers are not removed because we don't have our tug attached. So let's go ahead and get the tug connected.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
Take a look at the outside of this procedure going on.
Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
So there's a really cool detail here where there's a red light here on the front of the nose wheel.
Pushback.
And that just tells the ground crew that my parking brake is still set. When I'm ready for pushback and I disengage the parking brake, that red light will turn off, which will confirm to the ground crew that we are ready to go. Alright, so going through the checklist further on, signs are on an auto. We'll turn our beacon on at this point because we're just about ready to push back. Our strobes are on auto. And aiders are on nav. Fuel quantity is known and set. Takeoff data is set. Bow ref is set. Before start, checklist down to the line. So we're clearing ourselves for push and start. ATC transponder is set to 7,000. We'll get that to standby now. Beacon is on. Thrust levers are idle. Acupressure check is in the green. ECAM is showing nose wheel steering disconnect. And now we'll do our before start checklist below the line. So windows and doors are closed. Beacon is on. Thrust levers are idle. Parking brake is as required. All right. So, at this point, we can go ahead and get pushback and start those engines. Oh!
Ground. Please cancel pushback
Oh no,
operation.
that's not what I wanted.
Roger. Pushback canceled.
Nope, come back.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
Alright, well, they're gonna have to do that all over again. Man. Only get to look.
Sir, the bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
So we get to enjoy this this beautiful view of this livery for another minute or so.
Standing by for pushback.
Okay, now let's roll.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push. Parking brake set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
Parking brake released.
Parking brakes are released.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
Alright, so set our start to ignition and engine 2 on. There we go, start to see it spool up. Make sure that APU bleed is on, and it is. And this is Kilo here, so we'll do a pretty wide turn to get nice and lined up on Kilo. Karachi traffic, Air India 9084, pushing back onto Kilo, facing west. Lots of ground vehicles here that are just very good at getting in the way, but thankfully if you bump into them, nothing bad happens. Now we'll go ahead and start engine 1. A very aggressive shadow on the ground there. Pretty happy with that alignment. Alright. Let's go ahead and hold. And we can go ahead and stop pushback.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
Alright, we both have good engine starts. Those parameters look good to me. We didn't check the oil quantity, but that looks good.
You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Clear to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Holding position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
Alright, go ahead and look at our doors. We have air pressure. We should have checked that before, and also the hydraulics. All the hydraulic systems are up and running, which is lovely. And we have plenty of hydraulic fluid there, so no concerns. Okay, so 2 good engine starts. We'll go ahead and close this panel here. We don't need it anymore. And we'll get our engine selector back to normal. APU bleed. Go ahead and turn that off. We don't need anti-ice today. APU master switch is off because we're now on engine power. We'll go ahead and arm our ground spoilers. Rudder trim is set to 0. Flaps set to takeoff position. Takeoff 1. I think I heard a click. Yes. What am I forgetting? Pitch trim. So I believe what we were up, pitch trim of up 8. Alright, pitch trim up 8. And that looks good. And check the ECAM. That looks good for now. So after start checklist, anti-ice as required, ECAM status is checked, pitch trim is set to up 0.8, rudder trim is 0. After start checklist complete. So now we can move on to taxi preparation. So we have our own clearance for taxi since there's no ATC. Let's just go ahead and confirm that to be sure. Yeah, just Unicom. Alright, so for taxiing, we want our taxi light to be on. Flight control check, we'll do that now real quick. So, full right, full left, and neutral, full down, full up, and neutral. And we'll disconnect the rudder from the nose wheel, so full left, full right, and neutral. That looks good. Alright, parking brake is off. So just do a quick brake check. Alright, brake check. Pressure 0. Alright, so let's go ahead and start our taxi, and then we'll do the rest of the checks on the way. So we are using the tiller today. I have a separate joystick set up so we can use the tiller as close to real world as possible. Alright, I believe this path is taking us to Echo, I think was the taxiway. Echo, yes, Echo indeed. Watch that speed. We don't want to be turning all over the place, going too quickly. And once we're comfortably on this path here, we can go on and get everything else set up for our takeoff out of Karachi. Alright, heading down Echo. So, weather radar on. Transponder will set to on for now. TCAS still on standby. We'll turn the TARA when we get to the runway. Auto brake is set to max. Enjoy this smoky Karachi sunrise. I think we're a little bit lighter today, which is why we're rolling so easily. Feels like idle power is pretty intense. Let's see how I'm doing on center line. Oh, it's bang on. So right between the screens. That's exactly where we want to be. So we know Echo terminates at runway 7 right. So we can just follow this road all the way to the end. Getting kind of close to max ground speed for taxiing, so we'll just watch that. Apply some brakes if we need to. Cabin crew check.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Takeoff config test. ECAM memo, no blue. Slow down a little bit. Doing this turn with the rudder, I'll need the tiller just a little bit to navigate, just nice and gentle. Start to slow down. We're going to hold right there, runway hold point. And we'll do our before takeoff checklist. So flight controls are checked, flight instruments are checked, briefing is confirmed. Flap setting config 1 is confirmed. V1, V rotates, and V2 and flex temp are set. And ATC is set, and at this point we'll turn our TCAS on. So before takeoff checklist to the line complete, and now we're going to do before takeoff below the line. So we have our takeoff clearance because we're clearing ourselves. We'll make our call. Let's get our lights on. So we'll turn our strobes on at this point, and landing lights are coming on. Great. Engine mode as required, TCAS and TARA. Advise the cabin crew brake fans are off, we've never turned them on. Packs will turn off for takeoff, for our flex takeoff tonight. And approach path is clear. I do not see any traffic out there. Before takeoff checklist below the line, takeoff runway confirmed, 7 right. Cabin crews advised, TCAS, TARA. Engine mode is as required, packs are as required. Karachi traffic, Air India 9084, taking off runway 7 right. Alright. Let's go. 27 right confirmed. Turning on to the runway. Make sure we're nice and centered. That was a little early, but we'll correct here. Alright, so we'll do a nice rolling start here. So, throttle to 50%. Man, flex SRS. Knots. V1 rotates. Nav. Positive climb, gear up. Thrust climb. Climb. Alright, we're approaching Kilo Charlie 507. Go ahead and engage autopilot. Autopilot 1 engaged. Speed checked, flaps 0. Going to standard QNH. So spoilers disarmed. And exterior lights. Go ahead and turn those taxi lights off. Flying directly into the sun right now. So after takeoff, climb checklist, landing gears up, flaps retracted, packs are on, bow ref is set. After takeoff, checklist complete. Alright, we're heading to Dangi right now. Once we pass Dangi, we'll clear ourselves up to our cruise altitude of 37,000 feet. We'll do our 10,000 feet checks when we pass that altitude, and then we'll be on our way. So given we have a few moments to enjoy the view out of Karachi, let's see what we can see. Oh, it's pretty smoky. With no wind to kind of move that pollution. I'm assuming that's what's causing the weather conditions we're seeing, because if you look in the distance, it's not smoky when you get outside the urban areas. We're away from the coast. So I wonder if this is like a place where maybe winds offshore and winds from onshore combine and negate each other. Alright. Well, that is really pretty. So while we're enjoying the scenery going by at 53 frames per second, it feels like a good opportunity to talk about my sim setup here. So I have a computer here that I built in early 2020 before all the crazy shortages. So I was actually able to get all the equipment I wanted. Have a AMD, what is it, a 3800X, so previous generation series on an X570 Tai Chi motherboard, 32 gigs of RAM, and I started out with a Radeon 5200 Sapphire Nitro Plus graphics card, but was able to get myself an EVGA for the win 3080 Ti over the summer. So that's what's generating this beautifully smooth sim at ultra settings right now. I've been very happy with it. And as Microsoft has released updates to Flight Simulator, they have made many improvements to performance. I've been very happy with the sim choice myself. Alright, we are approaching Dangi in a sec. I'm just going to reconfirm our flight levels today. So cruise is 37,000 feet, optimal is 39,000 feet, and max 39,000 feet. I'm not sure if these are actually functional, but we'll just stick to the operating flight plan. Yeah, we're out of the smoke zone, so getting nice views of the ground. Alright, I'd say we are close enough to Dangi now that we can go ahead and clear ourselves to 37,000 feet. And, thrust climb, open climb. Up we go. Engine's really up, great. And we'll set our TCAS. Our TCAS is set to above, so that's fine until we get to cruise. Climb mode. Good. Good, good, good. Getting a pretty good climb rate. Alright, we'll go ahead and do our 10,000 feet checks here. So set to airport. Go ahead and actually, you know what, I'll give us a better view of our route. Plenty of airports. Yeah, it's actually 160. This is a good view to keep Karachi behind us. Landing lights retract. To reduce just a little bit more drag. Seatbelts is required. We'll keep them on until we get through what we expect to be a few bumps. Ecam Membo is fine. Nav aids, we'll go ahead and clear those. So we'll turn that off. And clear. And what else we got? And I think we are good. So once we get to our top of climb, then we'll do some preliminary descent planning just to make sure we don't miss our descent point. I think a programmatic descent point is still a feature to be built into the fly-by-wire mod. But there's a pretty cool hack we can do to estimate it on our way. So the desert terrain is starting to get a little bit more lush and green. It's actually quite beautiful. Ah, of course around the river. That kind of makes sense. Yeah, the last few flights we've been very... I don't know if I would call it lucky with the weather, but it makes me wonder if live weather is actually working, because there's been just like no clouds at all flying across the Middle East. If I recall, now should be the rainy season in India, but I don't think we're expecting any such weather on the way. Let me just confirm if that's correct. When is monsoon season in India? Oh no, I had it wrong. It's the opposite end of the year. So monsoon season in India is June to September. So I'm not noticing much turbulent air, so you know, I'll go ahead and I'll turn the seatbelts off. Why not? Just keep an eye on that. Well, it's refreshing to be flying in the daytime. I'm not a fan of flying directly into the sun. That's annoying. Anyway, I do want to check VATSIM to see what we have ahead of us. See if there is any ATC or at least any other traffic online. But no, it looks like we're kind of on our own heading to Mumbai tonight. Let's see. Let me search. Let me see if there's any other flights. Oh no, we are the only flight scheduled to Mumbai tonight. But looking ahead, since we'll be flying at this time of night, it looks like when we cross Vietnam, Thailand, Southeast Asia, we should get more ATC coverage there. And as we make our way up the China coast, I think we'll get more ATC as well. But for tonight, we'll just enjoy the peace and the views. Once we get up to cruise and I do our preliminary descent prep, I do like to read about the destinations that we're flying to. Learn a little bit more about where we're going. And I typically start by looking up the history of the airport we're flying to, because the airport histories seem to be very interesting. We found out a lot of interesting histories and facts about places that I've never been to or heard of before. Last night flying to Karachi, we learned of an English blimp, or I guess an English airship I should call it, that was developed in the 1930s if I recall. And one of those airships was making its maiden voyage from the United Kingdom to Karachi, I think via Cairo, and it only made it as far as France before it encountered issues and crashed. It was just a fascinating story about, you hear about the Hindenburg, of course, the most famous airship disaster of all time. It's not the only one. The only way we heard about it, the only way we learned about it is because its destination was Karachi, which was our destination last night. Until 1960, Karachi had a special hangar that was built for that airship that I guess was used for various purposes, but they eventually demolished it, so it doesn't exist anymore. But it used to be so huge that it served as a pretty prominent landmark for pilots flying VFR into the Karachi airport. Are we going to turn away from the sun ever? Yes, okay. So in about 250 miles we will make a slight right turn and get the sun out of our eyes a little bit. Alright, so we're picking up that tailwind now, and you can see our rate of climb is starting to drop. And that's because as the tailwind builds up, that actually takes away hopefully I'm saying this right, but the coefficient of lift of our wings. So it makes it harder for us to gain altitude, even though we're getting a nice push from behind over the ground. So from what I understand, for efficient climbs, headwind is preferable to tailwind. What is more efficient? What is better for flight time? I don't know. But if you do know, let us know in the comments. I just want to see, I saw that overfly symbol. Is it merged here? No, it's not. So I think the overfly might work if it's in the, if it's a data point in the ARX cycle. But it doesn't seem we can actually force an overfly right now. So let's get our bearings around us and see what we can see. Still tracking over the coast terrain, which is very interesting. It almost looks like the salt flats. Anyway. And from what I can tell, we are still over Pakistan. And expected at 3:56 UTC. Oh. So actually, even though we're not at our top of climb, this is a shorter flight than I even realized. We should start our descent brief now. So let's do that. Let's get that out of the way, and then with the extra time we have before our descent, we'll talk about some interesting Mumbai airport history. So to start, let's get our charts in order. Reference our flight plan here, looking for the Pokan to Bravo arrival. So let's go ahead and clear some of these charts. We don't need them anymore because our departure is done. Goodbye. Alright. Open the charts list for Mumbai. And for the star, Pokan to Bravo. Pokan to Bravo. There it is. What does this tell us? You know what? Before we dive in, let's just get everything we want pinned. So we are looking for runway 9. Please be an ILS. Thank the Lords. After last night's crazy landing. Didn't want anything else. Let's see what the difference is here between, what is this? This is, oh, initial approach and final approach. That's convenient. That's nice. So we'll see what information we can glean from both. And then, of course, when we land, we want airport info. And let's see what subsequent chart we want for the parking stands. Or maybe we can, oh no, we can't really use this. This looks like the main terminal area. So 10-9-B, oh, parking stands. So there's only one. Oh, okay, perfect. This is what we want. Wowza. Jeez, I don't even know where we want to be. Maybe we can find out on the way where Air India tends to park. But, and runway 9. Yeah, right here. Makes sense. 90 degrees. Straight west to east. Okay. So, let's take a look at the details here. So, the Pokan to Bravo. Where are we coming from? We are coming from Bowfin. And from Bowfin, we'll want to be at a minimum flight level of 150. And yeah. And then I guess when we get to Pokan, oh, that's what we want to be at Pokan. I see, but coming from Bowfin. So at Pokan, and then from Pokan to Mike Bravo 379, maximum flight level 120. We want to get even slower by August. Interesting. So we'll have to see. Oh no, Pocahontas 2 Bravo. So we're going to go here to N-Bon. That makes more sense. So we're going to go into that way. So, okay. So we want to be by 11,000 feet there. Okay. I'm getting my head around this chart. And then I guess from there, I'm not seeing where we intercept this approach. From N-Bon. I guess from N-Bon we do a 180 degree heading. And then I guess I assume we go straight in. Maybe hit this waypoint here. So the initial approach is not terribly helpful aside from frequencies. Alright, let's see the final approach. Alright, so we want to be at 2600 to intercept the glide slope. Okay. Oh, I see, that must be here. Alright. We want to be at 3800 when we get to this waypoint. Okay. That's not too bad. As far as planning our descents, it is Pocahontas, and that will be 150. So, a Pocahontas. Put in there. Ooh, that is not right at all. Pocahontas. Pocahontas. Apologies. Like Pokemon. Alright, got some time. And are we at cruise yet? We are at cruise. Okay, so let's use this nice calculator for our descent planning. Current altitude, we're going down, I've already forgotten, was it 15,000? Yeah, 15,000. We need 70 nautical miles to do it. We'll give ourselves 75. Just give us some buffer. So to do that, we're going to go to our fixes. We're going to Pokemon. Boom. And 75 nautical miles. Draw a radius there. Go back to our flight plan. Still too far away maybe to see it. No, but no, it's... Yeah, no, there it is. So when we reach that radius, that'll be our top of descent. Alright, so let's go ahead and we should just double check our arrival. Yep, I think it's time to get our weather. So let's do a weather request. METAR and send. And we'll wait for a company message to show up. Alright, company message received. METAR. Alright, so 14th at 3 Zulu, no wind at all. 2100 visibility, haze, a few clouds at 2000, pretty warm. QNH 1013, no significant weather. Well, this should be cake. Hopefully this gives us good views of Mumbai. Let's see if that jives with what we see on here. 1013, no wind. Yeah, that's pretty much what METAR says. METAR. Cool. So let's print that out. We'll want that as a reference. Ah, it's like one of my favorite features. Just so useful. Boom. And magically, it shows up here, exactly where we need it when we're preparing the box. So, a flight plan. Let's get our arrival programmed in. Arrival. I've already forgotten the runway. ILS 9. And it's the Pocon to Bravo. Is that right? My memory's like a fish. Pocon to Bravo, but you can't be too careful. Double check everything in aviation. Pocon to Bravo, and we are approaching via Bowfin. Again, memory, yes, Bowfin. And Bowfin transition. Is that right? That looks so messy. You know what? No. I think where I went wrong is ILS 9, Poco to Bravo. No via, but the Bowfin transition. Yes. 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 Go ahead and insert. So let's take a look at this more closely. All right, Laxam. There's Bowfin. There's Pocon. There's Enbon, and then we go to a manual. Right? That makes sense. Enbon and pointing 180 degrees. That's exactly what this says. And at some point, we're going to turn to Charlie 109. So let's just find that. That could be on the final approach. Nope, that's not that. That's Foxtrot 109. Sometimes it's so hard to see these things, but I'm not seeing it. What's after Charlie 109? And then Foxtrot 109. Okay, so we can make the call to go direct to Charlie 109, and then continue the rest of our approach. Let's see. Do we see the constraints? They are there. Cool. So let's just make sure that jives on the final approach. 2600 at Foxtrot 109 for the intercept. Great. Great. That's how it looks good to me. Let's get those rad navs going. So what do we want? We have our ILS, E-bomb. Let's do the Mumbai VOR. And I don't think there's anything else that's really relevant. All the distances are relative to the ILS. That's fine. Alright, so that's set. Performance. It's not shouting at me for doing the performance study yet, but we should get this in, and this is when I could use this handy METAR. So for Bombay, for Mumbai, QNH 1013, temperature 22 degrees. And let's see, magnitude and wind we said was 0 and 0. transition altitude, let's see. Transition level by ATC, so we'll leave it at 5,000, that's fine. Oh, and minimums. Minimums. I need to do some more research on what's better, to do radio minimums when they're available, or baro minimums. I believe the difference is baro is based on your altimeter setting, while radio uses the radio altimeter, which is, I think, works similar in concept to sonar, where it just kind of pings the ground, and based on the time it takes for that signal to come back, it can detect how high you are above the actual ground. Altimeter is subject to human error. The radio altimeter is actually using the ground as reference, so I'd like to think that the radio minimums are probably safer, so that's what we'll use. So ILS, Class C, the same as Class D here. Radio minimums are 254 feet. And there we go. And let's see, runway length. Let's just make sure it's long enough. It's plenty long enough. We can do a low brake landing. Don't need to worry about landing calculations here. So just set that now. Get our VOR on. And I think we are well ahead of the game, my friends. Well ahead of the game. Just going to quickly reference my standard operating procedures here. Alright, so for descent preparation, we confirm landing performance, check the weather. We're doing a flaps full landing. Set our flight plan, RadNav's performance. Programmed our bearing and distance. Let's see. What does this tell us other than a bearing and distance? They say to do this to the runway. We're doing it to the descent point. I guess we really don't need that since we have the visual. So how would we set this to the runway? I think if we go to the flight plan, we put it. Let's try putting in Victor Alpha Bravo Bravo 09 and see if that gives us what we want. So Victor Alpha Bravo Bravo 09. Wow, that works. That works. That's pretty sweet. Cool. Alright, beyond that, fuel prediction. Yeah, looks good even still. ECAM landing elevation. Let's yeah, set to auto. This is a cool little summary page. Let's actually take a minute to explore this a little bit. So this gives you some fuel information, fuel fuel used, oil quantity, and additional engine stats. Then you also have your air. So you have your temperatures in the cockpit and the cabin. You have your air pressure in the cabin. Cabin altitude, which is how the simulated altitude, the pressurized altitude of the cabin. We're at 37,000 feet, but it feels like 7,300 in the cabin. And the change in pressure, kind of like the descent rate. As we get closer to the ground, the pressure system naturally gets you closer to sea level air pressure, which is pretty sweet. I'd love to read more about the system because it doesn't work the way that you think it does when you hear about a pressurized cockpit or pressurized cabin. But anyway, landing elevator set to auto. And then again, I get your different temperatures. But nice overall summary of the stats of the flight and cruise. More to learn there for sure. And I just noticed I always forget to turn on the timer here. Normally you would turn this on when you're pushing back and starting the engines. It gives you a sense of how long the engines have been running. I think it might only be in cold conditions, so don't quote me on this. I think every 15 minutes you're supposed to run up the engines. It must be in cold weather. But you'd use this to kind of help establish that. You also have the chrono here, which starts the timer on your ND display. Alright, we're soon going to turn away from the sun. We're getting some more clouds. Yeah, so we'll be passing through some weather on the way down. Let's see how the so I think we're definitely flying over India now. Well west of Ahmedabad. Yeah. And still no ATC on a line. Alright, so this might be an opportune time since we're still about less than 10 minutes away from our top of descent by my estimate. I do want to look up the Mumbai airport and read a little bit about its history. So it's the second busiest airport in the country. I'm guessing, yes, the first goes to Delhi, which makes sense. It handled about 50 million passengers in 2018. Let's see. Yeah, so as is the story with many airports we've come across on this journey, the original airport was constructed by the English. So the Royal Air Force Santa Cruz was constructed in the 1930s. It was a bigger airfield than the nearby Juhu Aerodrome, and was home to several Royal Air Force squadrons during World War II, from 1942 to 1947. The original airport covered an area of 1,500 acres. It had 3 runways. The area referred to today as the Old Airport is the remnants of that original airport. By 1946, when the Royal Air Force began the process of handing over the airfield to the Director General of Civil Aviation for Civil Operations, 2 abandoned hangars have been converted into terminal for passenger traffic. One for international, one for domestic. Traffic at the airport increased after Karachi was partitioned to Pakistan, and as many as 40 daily domestic and foreign services operated by 1949, prompting the Indian government to develop the airport, equipping the airport with a night landing system comprising a radio range and a modernized flare path lighting system. Constructed a new passenger terminal in 1950. So with the dawning of the jumbo jet era in the 1970s, the Santa Cruz Airport, as it was called, began suffering from insufficient operational capacity. The airlines were constantly expanding their services, but there was no corresponding increase in space at the terminal, making it the most congested airport in the country. In one of its issues, Time magazine, referring to the chaos, called the terminal building a black hole. Goodness. A major fire gutted the international section of the terminal in 1979. We're getting closer to our top of descent, so I just want to make sure we don't miss it. Set a 20-mile warning there. So just look at the different terminals here. Let's see. So let's see. Trying to find out now. Let's see. VABB Air India terminal. Alright, so Terminal 2 is the international terminal. So we'll plan to park there. Integrated terminal. I'm going to guess it's the bigger one. Let's see if we can get a map. I do often find this, that sometimes the charts don't correspond with how they label the terminals for the passengers. So T2. Oh, we're at top of descent. I was about to miss it. Alright, let's set our altimeter to 15,000 feet. down we go. So engine is coming back, and we are beginning our descent. Alright, so this is apparently Terminal 2. Oh yeah, and this is Terminal 1. So let's just quickly talk through the landing and probable exits. So we'll land runway 9. And let's plan to vacate, it's pretty far down, but we'll vacate via November 5. That'll get us down to Mike 7, and we'll park somewhere along here. Won't make it too complicated. Alright, we are at Bofin. We're heading to Pocon. So we're officially flying the Star. And are we, yeah, we're preparing for the next speed restriction. Automatically, that's fantastic. Let's make sure we also know what to expect there. So we know by the time we get to N-Bon, we want to be at 230 max. And then I think from there we can just make the call to start configuring for the approach at our leisure. Oh, not to scale. Got it. Alright, continuing our descent. Let's see. We have about 8 minutes. We'll lose 16. Yeah, that's plenty of time to get to 15,000 feet. So that's pretty good. Oh, and even though TCAS is not functional, let's go ahead and just set that to below. And next, after 15,000, we want to get down to 11,000 for N-Bon. Now, is it? I think that was 11,000 even. Like we have to cross N-Bon at 11. So then we might actually want to fly past N-Bon and get lower. It kind of looks like the way this is... Oh, that's actually a good distance away. You got down to 2,600 feet. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll make a judgment call when we get closer. See if we need to go south a bit more to kind of lose some altitude before we go direct to our approach fix there, but we'll just prepare to make that decision closer to the time. Let's see how this descent is going. We have 8,000 feet to go, roughly. 2,000 feet a minute, 4 minutes. Yeah, right on schedule. pretty close. It's a minimum altitude restriction, so it's fine if we cross it a little over. But then we'll definitely need to get down to 11,000 once we pass Hokan. So prepare for that. And again, what we'll do once we pass Enbon, I believe is the next one, then we'll start a descent to 2600, which is for the initial approach fix. And then we'll go through our checks before we go direct, just to make sure we are absolutely ready to do this approach. Really take a look at the missed approach procedure, just so that we're prepared for it. Ooh. That was bumpy. Climb straight ahead to 1,000 feet thereafter, climbing turn left to join VOR holding at 3,800 or as directed. Okay, so yes, we'd hold, okay, I see. 3,800 feet and we would hold at the VOR. Alright, we are turning. I'm going to continue our descent to 11,000 rather. And down we continue. Quite pretty. About 60 miles from the airport. Estimating about 10 minutes before arrival. So it's 4 UTC. I think Mumbai is 5.5 hours ahead, so that's roughly 9:30 in the morning right now. Alright, got about 5 minutes to kill before this next waypoint. Things still seem pretty sweet. Let's see if, well, that's a pretty cool angle. Let's see what our passengers are looking at. Ah, that's the boring side. Ah, I love this view. It's one of my favorite views. That's pretty good too. Pretty sweet livery. Oh, sounds like we're leveling off. star. Alt. And we're automatically slowing down for the next restriction. So let's just see, I just want to make sure here. Goes to 230, but then it kind of breaks, so that might speed us up to 230 again. So I'm going to turn on the speed there, so we can manage it ourselves until we are entering the approach phase. And we'll set our next altitude, which will be 2600 to intercept the glide slope, and we'll activate that once we pass this next waypoint. Of course, we are required to cross N-Bahn at 11,000. The majestic city of Mumbai is somewhere out there. Just about to pass N-Bahn, and then I think things will start to get a little more exciting. So turning to heading 180 as expected, and at this point let's get down. Alright, so at this point we'll do our 10,000 feet checks. So a landing light set. Seatbelts are on. Set to constraints. Turn the landing system on. Rad nav selected and identified. Engine mode as required. ECAM status checked. So, the approach checklist. Briefing is confirmed. ECAM status check. Seatbelts are on. Barrel ref is set. Minimums are set. Engine mode selector as required. Approach checklist complete. And just do one more pass to make sure everything is configured as we want it for the approach. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Okay. So we'll bleed a little bit more altitude before we go direct. Oh, QNH. QNH. 11013 is current QNH in Mumbai. Yes, 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 yes. So that's it. Still too far away to pick up the ILS, but we'll get there. Oh. Oh, we have a friend. Was assigned on recently. Let's see. They're taking off runway 27. We're landing runway 9. We're going to be heading directly toward each other. So you know what, well, this is a good reason to do a bit of a longer run around. Because we want to get out of his way. This is when TCAS would have come in handy. Let me see what that prior message was, if he identified. Didn't identify the type of aircraft he was flying, but let's see if it's on VATSIM. Yeah, well, they have departed, whatever aircraft type they are. Oh, type A320, so it is a jumbo jetliner. Alright, I think at this point, let's go ahead and start heading towards our fix. So let's go direct to Charlie 109. There we go. And we'll see if we can spot our friend on the departure. like there's some epic cloud cover ahead. What did the METAR say when we downloaded it? Few at 2,000, but 2 kilometers of visibility. Is it kilometers or feet? Or nautical? No, must be. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Alright, anyway. No traffic in sight, not with this cloud cover. Alright, we're 23 miles from the airport. So, I mean, in all likelihood, this A320 should be well clear of us by the time we get on final. So it looks like they've turned south, passing to our east. Yeah, this would have been such a good opportunity for TCAS, really. And their altitude... Oh, they're already above us. They're already above us. Can we see them? It would be but a blip. No way we'll see them in this cloud cover. So get a little bit closer, we'll activate our descent phase. Probably another mile or so. Alright, let's go ahead and activate that approach phase. Confirmed. Approach mode, autopilot 2. And we'll go back to managed speed mode. Cat 3 dual, autopilot 1 and 2. Look star, getting ourselves established. Wow, this would be a low visibility approach. Although, hopefully once we get below 2,000, if the METAR is correct, but it's probably updated since we downloaded it. At least we have the ILS today, unlike yesterday where we had nothing. Establish on the localizer. Alright. Green dot speed. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Mumbai traffic, Air India 9084, Type A320 on 10-mile final for Mumbai International, runway 9. Speed check to flaps 2. Glide slope is armed. Glide slope star. Radio altimeter's alive. Glide slope. Gear down. Auto brake confirmed. Set to low. Lights. Nose to takeoff. And turn off on. Ground spoilers are armed. Speed check to flaps 3. Check our wheel page. All looks good. Flaps full.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
Landing checklist. Cabin crews advised. Auto throttle is currently on. Auto brake is as required. ECAM memo. No blue. Miles and 0 visibility. Three and a half miles to go. 1,000. Well, clearing up. Airport in view. And runway in view as well. Visual on the runway. Let's go ahead and turn the autopilot off.
500. 400. 100 above. 300. Minimum.
Continue.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Full reverse, thrust. Down to the left of the center line. Opposite of my usual problem. Decel. $70 knots. Rolling out. Alright, so exit coming up. I think it's the one we wanted. Alright, we'll come to a stop at the hold point here. And then do our no entry. Oh, okay. Is that for us? Can't tell. I'm going to assume that's for us. So, oh, I'm messing up. Okay, so we will come to a stop here. Mumbai traffic, Air India 9084 is clear of runway 9. Mumbai traffic. Alright, so after landing checklist, which is pages ahead, because of all the emergency procedures. Alright, after landing, ground spoilers disarmed, radar off, predictive weather system off, engine mode selectors normal, flaps retract, TCAS to standby, ATC as required. Go to standby, APU will start that thing up. 1, 2, 3. Anti-ice is required, brake temperature, check. Go to the wheels page, wheels. Temperature is fine. Go back to that APU. And we will, at this point, after landing checklist, flaps retracted, spoilers disarmed, APU started, radar off, predictive weather system off, after landing checklist complete. And we'll get that strobe back to auto, landing lights off, runway, turn off lights off, and nose to taxi. Alright, let's do some taxi planning here because I turned around and that's not where we want to be. So we are here on November. We are actually November and November 5, so we are right here. So we'll go down to November, we'll turn around, head down Mike, and then transition on to Mike 7 to hotel, and then park somewhere over there. Okay. So just do a big U-turn. So I did download custom scenery from flightsim.to for Mumbai Airport. That's actually really pretty. You see that control tower there in the distance. The clouds are pretty epic. The taxiway markers are awesome. Like, I just normally cannot read the taxiways in the stock Microsoft Flight Simulator airports. Just I think they expect everyone to play this on like a 65-inch screen instead of a 27-inch monitor. In any case, Microsoft got a lot right, so can't really fault them. Alright, so we'll go ahead and turn here. And we'll turn on to Mike. Sure, we're going slow enough to turn and turn. Alright. Yay! So we see we transition on to hotel. Is that what we said? Yeah, so this must be Mike Bravo. Yeah, that's Mike Bravo. This is where we'll turn. I guess we're calling it Mike 7. Oh, that just popped in. Alright, so sometimes the free scenery is not always the tightest. Ah, there's hotel. Right, and we want to go up hotel. We want to park somewhere here, so just follow this around. Right, and the stands are marked. Perfect. So V16, V17 left. Let's go to V19. That sounds good. I'm assuming it's going to be nice and large for our aircraft. So V17 right, V18 left, V18 left, and then V18 right, and then V19. Here is our turn. Nice and slow. And turn. Not too bad. Just to give us plenty of time to straighten out. Go in nice and slow. Don't want to stop. Don't want to stop. Turn the nose lights off. You don't want to blind anyone. Give it a little power just to get us in. And I should be able to maneuver with the rudder at this point. Just have finer control there. Alright, and are there markers on the ground for... sometimes I fight the stick here. I need to increase the dead zone, I think. So A380, A350, A320, A321. Let's get outside and see how that looks. Close enough. Parking brake on. And APU is available, so we'll go ahead and turn our engines off. And seatbelt signs off. And let's get those ground services connected, eh? We got the jetway. Boom. The APU bleed on, keep the air flowing. And we'll get power. We'll get baggage. And are they coming? Oh, power's there. So call them. There they go. And baggage. There they go. So this is pretty sweet. Before we do our the rest of our parking procedures, just really take a moment to appreciate. This is a pretty good scenery pack. I'm glad we came here. That looks phenomenal. This is where I might take some photos for our next flight, because this is where we're departing out of next time. Snapshot. See a United hangar there. I wonder if that's actually there in real life. Cool. Very cool. Alright. Parking checklists. So, parking brakes are on, brake pressure check. We're not going to roll away. Engines, master switch both off. Beacon off. Seatbelts off. Yes, so beacon comes off. Steer lights as required. So we can go ahead and turn strobes off. We'll keep nav and logo on as long as we're in here. Parking brake is required. So parking checklist. APU bleed is on. Engines are off. Seatbelts are off. Exterior lights as required. Fuel pumps off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Parking brake and chocks as required. And very good. So we'll go ahead and check ECAM status. Looks good. ATC set to standby. And turn our timer off. I'm just going to do it gently because I always accidentally clear it. I just want to stop it. Anyway, that's fine. Cool. So we'll clean this up a bit. Get this back to arc. Turn the constraints off. Landing system off. Flight director off. And then we'll turn these lights off. And then we'll dim these lights. Yeah, and this thing operating procedures, this is really just a courtesy. Again, I also think it just extends the life of these components. not have it blaring bright all the time. Alright, and then once this is done, we'll secure the aircraft and call it a night. Unlock the door at this point. Alright, let's go ahead and shut her down. So parking brake is on. Go ahead and turn the aiders off. 1, 2, 3. Oxygen crew supply off. Exterior lights off. Maintenance bus is required. APU bleed and master switch off. We'll get the external power is on. Did we not maybe we didn't disconnect external power when we left. Oh well. Anyway, so APU bleed and master switch off. Emergency exit lights and signs off. External power is required. Battery 1 and 2 off. So securing the aircraft checklist. Aiders are off. Oxygen's off. APU bleeds off. Emergency exit lights off. Signs are off. APU and battery. APU is off. Batteries are on. I guess we can turn those batteries off now. Just run external power exclusively. Get that dome light off. And dim these instrument lights. So friends, I think... Oh, and I like to turn the radios off because, you know, why not? And the iPad. We don't need you anymore. Alright guys, so really all that's left to do is turn the external power off. Our APU is still spooling down. How long does that take? Self-test in progress. There we go. So long APU. Super cool. Alright, we'll turn you back off. And now, my friends, let's go cold and dark. Disconnect external power. And there we are. Alright, everyone, that is the end of our stream. We flew from Karachi to Mumbai today. Pretty uneventful. Weather was lovely. Potential for collision with an aircraft taking off runway 27 when we were approaching runway 9, but it was fine. They were well enough away, no one got hurt. Got to enjoy this Mumbai scenery a little bit. When we get together next time, we will be heading to Delhi, and from there getting into the Himalayan mountains for some more epic scenery and maybe some more interesting weather, but we'll see when we get there. Until then, stay safe, fly safe, follow your procedures, and have a pleasant rest of your evening. Take care. This is Mike November Whiskey, signing off.